So I'm going to be talking about praise, punishment. Neither. Not praising, not punishing, not reacting, not kidifying. Kidifying is kind of the only word I could find for that, but I think you get what I mean. Aloe parenting, such an awesome term. So pleased to have learned that term. It means basically other parenting, so parents other than you, looking after your children, raising them, having that close connection with them. I've talked about that so many times in this group, the village, and raising our kids together, which very few of us in the Western world seem to be doing right now. And also purpose, just purpose in it's an add-on topic really, just my experience of this week working with the awesome students that I work with and families, and just inspiring or seeing some really amazing breakthroughs there with autonomy, self-leadership in the young people, where it wasn't there before. So yeah, I wanted to say something a bit about that. So yeah, first of all, these topics, many different topics, I've always had in my mind an image of parenting. I think it's also inspired this particular journalist that Brian posted about. Please do check out that post below this. I'm going to take off this scarf, it's so hot. Even in my north-facing bedroom, it's really pretty cold usually. Please do check out Brian's post. And yeah, I'm just inspired from this particular journalist's investigation into parenting and how we've come to parent. Also by an image I've always had. I'm not quite sure how this image got planted in my mind, but it's of an Indian family. I love India. I go to India many times, so it's really of a poor Indian family. So yeah, forgive the kind of, I don't mean to stereotype in any way, but of a family where, there are kids packed in. India is one country where I've seen this up close. Of course, it happens in many, many countries, unfortunately, but families packed into a small space. Well, I say unfortunately. Actually, this is quite a happy image in some ways for me. Mum and dad busy. Dad probably out working, mum cooking. Traditional sort of Indian family like that. Traditional family. And kids, many kids who basically, they're not getting a look in. They're being cared for, but, they're kind of on the floor. And there's something really powerful about a kid who's left alone. And so that's really one of the topics for this live. How they then just learn to navigate the world, crawling and being left on the ground and having to kind of use their bodies in that way is like essential for their brain development and for all kinds of other developmental milestones. But yeah, the image really is of a parent who's too busy to fuss. And in the Western world, we really have got far too much time to fuss over our kids. And I think that is one of the reasons why we are struggling so much in a way as parents, as a collective of parents, is because we have far too much time to fuss on our kids. So yeah, the image of the family that's just too busy. I also happen to know a family where they had 7 kids, and I asked the dad about it, and he said, well, we manage basically by the other kids parenting the younger kids, so there's so many of them. The older kids just end up taking responsibility, and that again just sounded like, wow, that sounds great, because it brings in so many good things, takes the pressure off the parents in a way. And it is also part of this Aloe parenting topic, which I'll get into more a bit later, where siblings, what could be more powerful than like siblings raising each other, in a happy circumstance, not in a kind of abandonment circumstance, and also child to child. Like, wow, I mean, it doesn't have to be a sibling, but that way of also being parented, or that way of also growing up with other children, teaching you, spending time with you, taking responsibility for you in a way that is like a parenting sort of role. So powerful, so beneficial, and so rare. In our culture, speaking from the UK. Yeah, and I also wanted to mention Lenore Skenazy. She's some of you might know her, but she wrote a book called Free Range Children or something. But yeah, anyway, there's a sensational kind of news thing about her a couple of decades ago, maybe like in the 80s or 90s. She tried to give her kid the sort of freedom and autonomy that she knew he wanted. He was asking for it. She was living in New York. I think she's a journalist at the time. And she gave him $10 and put him on the tube, or dropped him somewhere in the middle of town and said, yeah, sure, if you want to come back using the metro, which was his wish. He wanted to come back using do they call it the metro in America? I can't remember. Anyway, using the underground, using the metro. He wanted to travel a city on his own, 10 years old. And she gave him this experience. She went, great, here's $10, go for it. You can do it. I trust you. I know you've got the wherewithal. He got all ready for it. He was really excited about it. It was kind of like a homeschooling project, whether he's a homeschooler or not, don't know. And anyway, it blew up in the press. It's like she was dubbed America's worst mum. And so she's on her book is like America's worst mum. It became a vehicle for her to express her perspective. But yeah, giving these freedoms to our children is just an interesting story, that she was vilified for giving a 10-year-old the kind of responsibility and self-leadership that he was craving, because of the perceived dangers of the world and the real dangers of the world. But anyway, interesting story. So praise, the first topic, praise. Praise is such an interesting one, and it is one that in the article that Brian posted, which is below this video, it's brilliantly, everything in that article is just something I'm going to riff on today. So yeah, praise, in my experience, it is really something that children aren't looking for. They're not young kids, aren't really looking for our praise. If you notice when you start praising your children, how they actually react, it usually takes away, it can easily take away from the circumstance of whatever they're achieving, whatever we like about what they're doing. If they're creating some beautiful artwork, or they've been generous to their sibling, or anything that they're doing, when we come in and just go, I really liked how you did that, or that's so nice, wow, I think your artwork is, we've all done this, but it's great. I would just invite you to recognize what's happening there when you do that, or if you do that, when you get into a kind of praising situation. My experience is that often, like my kids, and yeah, I'm not so much sure for the kids that I work with. In my role, it's slightly different there with praise. But for my own children, I want them just to experience the pure joy and reward of what they're doing. Like, it doesn't matter what I think about it. So, especially with something like generosity, if my son has been generous to my daughter, like, I just want to let it roll. I just want him to like normalize that, to just be like feeling all the natural goodness around that action, rather than trying to kind of capitalize on it in some ways, or kind of reflect back to him like how good that was. This is all in the realm of good and bad, and that it's not a necessary realm. Like, it's not a helpful way of labeling our children. We really mustn't be saying, like, you're a good girl, you're a good boy, or you're a bad girl, bad boy. I tell my kids there's no such thing, and that's what I believe. There is, of course, behaviors we don't want to support. There's no extreme, but I love letting my kids just fully enjoy something amazing that they're doing. So if they are creating some great artwork, I don't want to make it mine. I don't want to make it like for me. And we do train our kids, if we're not careful, we do train them to seek our praise. So, that's not a proof that they should be having praise or that it's good for them. We've just trained them up to kind of come and show us stuff. That's always something that slightly makes my skin crawl. Even in my own family, when, someone comes running up and goes, look, of course, I don't know how to express this, because there are times when a child might come running up and say, look at what I did, and I just celebrate that completely. But when they're 2 minutes into a piece of artwork and then they bring it to you and go, I've done it, what do you think? Then that's like a valueless couple. They've done something and then they just want to move on to the next thing. They're not in it themselves, because they've kind of done it for our benefit. So that's one thing around praise. We have to be very careful. So I would just advise, and I know I celebrate in my own experience, those times when I can just completely support it, give whatever acknowledgement might be needed, but really scaling down the whole idea that we have to convince them of their own value, or that we have to convince them of their own goodness, or that they need our praise to kind of feel good about themselves. It is innate for a child to feel good when they're doing something that's really rewarding for them. So I want them to feel the real pure reward. Yeah, another great topic in the article was reacting to behavior we don't like. So like when there is behavior that we don't want to support, we don't want to, yeah, it's toxic for them, or for their relationship with their sibling, or for us in the family in some way. This way of correcting behavior, not reacting, it's a beautiful example in this article about reacting with joy and with love in a way, and with humor, like a way of just being able to say clearly and calmly, like we don't use our hands for hurting, or we don't use our speech like that, but immediately also then like into the embrace of love and humor, finding a way to, it's not an opportunity for shaming and blaming. It's an opportunity for clear correction, but then, the love and the joy, especially sometimes in my experience, I've seen times where love and joy and humor has really sealed the correction, or that sealed that sense of like all is well, but don't do that. That's not a beneficial behavior. That's not a beneficial way of speaking. Sealed by love, joy, humor, and warmth. Pervasively in our parenting, that is a great vibe to carry with us, that there is an unconditional love. This is a real cliche, but that's the practical way of actually showing that unconditional love. I do think has been misunderstood in many ways, but that way where you're just, it's always the context, even in correction, even in guidance, even in strong boundaries, that the context is that that's the most loving action of a parent, and directly being able to bring in joy, love and humor, even in quite intense circumstances where there could be a lot of shame and guilt and blame. And our own calmness. This is another beautiful thing in this article, our parental calmness in the face of child-produced chaos. Yeah, absolutely the go-to in my experience too, and part of my practice as as a human being, to be prioritizing rest and relaxation with all of the intense emotions and thoughts that come up, especially in parenting. So yeah, children really respond to that force field. If you can be like a force field for calmness, whilst it's all kicking off, they immediately take kind of shelter and support and harbour in that. So yeah, we, without contriving calmness as parents, when you've got to speak up and even shout, for something to stop immediately, then that's the time for that, full on, no worries. But I think you know what I mean. I imagine you'll understand. Another great point from the article about not separating our children off into some other world, not having kind of child-specific activities. It relates a bit to also, not feeling like we're responsible for entertaining them, or for providing them with something that isn't just the real world, that isn't just our natural life, that isn't our natural mode as well. So yeah, this has always been a dream of mine, that my children mingle freely in my working life. They come in here, or they come in when I'm teaching someone. I so want them to be a part of all of my life. No separation between adult world and child world. And it can be a real difficult setup for parents when the child's world is defined kind of differently, and you're on the job doing what the child wants, and you're not doing what you want, and you've created this kind of funny world around them. Also, one of my heroes, or one of the people that I first started reading, John Holt, who's like I haven't read him for ages, but he's an awesome, outspoken founder of the unschooling movement, I think is how he'd be remembered now. Had the same thing, where he was working and children were just kind of around him, around wherever his office was, and he used to just love to be in that atmosphere with them and have them in that atmosphere with him. No separation between adult world and children's world. I also think of like Greek truck drivers. I'm often holidaying in Greece, hope to this summer as well. And just seeing, dads, for me, I see a dad and their daughter, for example, in the front of their truck, and the daughter's just participating in the dad's work. He's got a few trips to do, a few errands. She's part of it. She becomes part of that world. She sees him working. She participates in that. So incredibly healthy to have our children be just part of our lives as much as is possible, and not to change our behavior. So, okay, not all of our kids are going to go into the office with us or whatever. And maybe this is a nice reflection also on the back of a year of lockdown, that our lives have been mixed up in a really good way, where we have much more of a normal sense around what everyone does. Stuck at home, the parents are working or whatever, and the kids, we've been shoved in together, and I think that can be great. I suppose it's most relevant with the weekend times and the times when we are all together, that we then as parents don't go into some mode where we're like, right, now we've got to entertain or like make a good couple of days for our children whilst putting everything that we would want to do on hold. Much better than that is an existence for our children where they're not the be all and end all, they're not the focus of everything. There's four of us in our family, and I really hold that benefit for all four of us. That no one person at any one time is dominating. It can be that one person becomes a specific focus for all four of us to serve that one member of the family. But yeah, so nice when children get swept up in, young children as well. In the article, it says how, young children can be helping us with what we have to do. We're not just there with loads of toys and running out of steam very quickly, by the way. If you're the entertainer for your kids, that's very hard work, hard to keep them entertained, because it's a bit like with learning. Their best learning is self-learning, and their best entertainment is also self-entertainment. Ultimately, they amuse themselves with whatever's in front of them, same as we do. So, yeah, having a daily life where you've got the washing to do, you want to do some cleaning up or something, you want to read a book, and they have their own lives. Like I've definitely raised my kids like that, where they are left to manage their own lives without it being neglectful, and without just working all the time for me or something. That it's not like that. It's just a sense of like they've got their own responsibility to find their own way in life, like from the beginning, really, with my complete support, and of course I'm available when they need me. But yeah, I hope you get the point. So powerful for children not to be constantly looking to their parents for direction and for kind of what to do. And I think this does play right into the lifestyle of the technology companies also. I don't want to get off into gaming again today, but I think a child who's been steeped in self-leadership from a young age will be able to make better decisions about what they do, let's just put it like that, by the time they're teenage, and by the time they are, the world opens up for them in that way. Yeah, and in the article it also says, yeah, throw out the toys. Yeah, there's a great thing that I was told once, that I read in fact in some developmental literature, about the inverse correlation between how much a toy costs and how much children play with it. And that just hit me straight away. Like, I loved that. And of course, however expensive the toys, it might be an iPad they're glued to it the whole time. But the point for me was like mud, water, the beach. Doesn't cost us anything to be on the beach, hopefully, or to play with water, play with mud, like for young children. And so these kind of free things, many kids, they get given a present when they're really young, and they just love the packaging. They're like all about the unwrapping of the present, the paper, the really really young kids, 2 or 3, the cardboard box it comes in, the toy is like, so yeah, anyway, that's an exciting reality actually, that we don't need also um, lots of expensive toys, and just to look at that way of like finding love and interest in basically anything. That's what we want to empower in our children, is for them to navigate their own way around the world without too much close control from us, to pick out the things that they naturally like. Yeah, so definitely holding the benefit of all in a family unit, what serves everyone. Don't become one of these parents that is like all about the children, trying to make it right for them, serving, exhausted, beleaguered parents. It doesn't serve anyone to be like that. It actually, that's just too much love. That's too much love of the wrong kind, of a misinterpreted kind. That kind of love isn't helping. So, I'd recommend we all liberate ourselves from this. It is a culture. So one reason why Young Fire is here is that it is a pervasive current culture, changing, I think, luckily. But where that's apparently our role, that we are needing to just like do everything for our children the whole time. Wow, gotta like, the them project, the kind of child project, that got to get them to this club and that club. And, at all ages, you can see parents just completely overdoing it. So, for a long time now, I've been recommending to the parents I work with, to just back off, like give themselves and their kids what everyone kind of wants. The kids want, the young adults want more space, more freedom, more autonomy, and the parents want less stress, less pointless micromanagement, less self-defeating efforting. Somehow we all know, even when we're getting it so badly wrong, that it is just kind of pointless. We're just pointlessly suffering away trying to make our kids do stuff when really they're crying out to do it themselves, and to be entrusted with the responsibility to run their own lives, and definitely need a bit of time to learn to do that. So it's not like you just hand it over and hooray. It takes time for them to step into that. But I have two students right now who have just blossomed so much from having like far less parental pressure and control. It's taken about 6 weeks, a couple of months or whatever. Parents stepping back, kids stepping up. And it's just beautiful to see, because, some of these students are not natural students. I've probably talked about them here. I happen to be teaching two separate footballers, like really good footballers, kind of semi-pro, turning pro footballers, who are 15 currently. And yeah, seeing how they thrive with just far less pressurizing, far less controlling from the parents. And also the parents are like on holiday compared to like how they were parenting before. The immense responsibility they felt to try and make their kids kind of do the work, whatever it was, just giving that some space. And now the kids are doing the work themselves. It's like, it's kind of a no-brainer, but it takes a leap of faith also to like realize that those will be the results, and to just try it out. It takes time. It doesn't come immediately. It's definitely up and down. Yeah, so that's been exciting. What else? Aloe parenting. Yeah, I really do have something to say about aloe parenting. I've been really blessed in my own family life with an incredible aloe parenting situation. I've been part of a community for the last 10 years, not currently living with those community friends, but I was living in a community housing in Bristol. Very strong bond between all of us. And my kids grew up with so many other parents. Aloe means other. I think it's a German word or a Greek word. I'm not sure. Greek, it looks like. Probably German now. But anyway, my kids grew up with so many other trusted adults. And I've talked about this many times in this group. But having anyone else handing your kids over, if your kids are young, like just do everything you can to wind down your own clinginess and to just give them away to trusted people, people in your close family. Just make sure everyone's getting used to like holding the baby. And even when they're 3 or 4, I remember my own child, like watching them when they were 3 and thinking, should I be? They're talking to a friend in a particular place. We used to go to this, we still do go to Sweden every year, again, to be with the community, 150 people or something at this in this incredible center in Sweden. And my children just have, so many authentic adult relationships from that time, but I needed to give them the space. Me and my wife, we needed to be able to give them away in that way, let them go off, and also just stay away when they're making a conversation age 3 or 4 with someone that they don't really know, who's come to see them, hanging out in the sunshine in the garden, and I can see them chatting. Not a good time for dad to show up and just be kind of there as well, like you just completely get in the way. I wanted to empower all of those relationships, give my kids away. I was always so proud when people didn't know who was the dad of my son. Like my son would just be in the arms of all kinds of guys, like carrying him off, band mates and all kinds of people that I was, that I love and trust, and carrying him around at parties. And it was a source of great pride for me that it was unclear like who the dad was when he was 3 or 4, because you can see the love between him and all of them. We're a whole bunch of merry men raising him together in our own ways. So giving him away for 5, 10 minutes, 2 hours at a time, whatever, as appropriate, is just the greatest gift I knew for him and for his development, and both my children the same. Just so incredible for us to activate whatever. In the article it calls it an auntie uncle network as well. It can be anything, it can be like the school run, can be just, of course there are parents in it. We don't have to belong to a kind of community or be part of a community. Great, I think, if we are. But we can devise our own ways of making sure that and it's really to do with mentorship. It's really to do with like having that trusted sense of being with other adults and other older peers, other older children, and younger children, just being with all ages in a trusted way, where you're not the property of your parents anymore. You're on a free rein. You're like you're being looked after. You're safe, completely safe. But you're running your own life from a young age, from 3 years old, to be able to be talking with someone and not looking for mum and dad. That's a huge result for the parents. Wow, if you've achieved that, that is great. When your kids are happy to go off and be independent from a young age, brilliant. And also I have that circumstance now. In some ways, I live with my mum, so the 4 of us have moved in with my mum, and we have the same thing here. The benefits of like the grandparents, also families, any families that can bond together like that, raise our kids together. It's so incredible, so precious having my mum next door. We moved here simply because of lockdown, but have stayed since lockdown, so that she wouldn't be on her own. And we're in a magical place. It's brilliant for us too. But again, that's Aloe parenting. Even just my mum, she's a grandparent, but it's so incredible to open up the family unit, to have those times when the kids can freely go next door and give us some time. No parents really want to be with that, should be, or should want to, or do want to be with their kids all the time. It's not healthy. It's not how we're designed to be. So so good for then everyone to be happy going off and giving time and space to each other in the family unit from a very young age. And I remember the absolute joy of my kids coming back, from wherever they'd been, and just seeing them, like, wow, the love of seeing them, having not seen them for a few hours or for a day or something. Everyone having their healthy time and space, and then back together, back for some more family life. And just stunning to see them as a vision kind of coming back into my life. And many parents don't get that. They're just constantly with their kids. Give yourself the time and space as well.